King Cobra has passed. And when I heard this, I thought it was a joke. Um, it was very hard to listen to his father say what happened. They believe it was a issue with his liver or pancreas going out. Um, I'm usually a person that don't get upset. And you can say, why would you get upset? So it's kind of disturbing because King Cobra was like the few, you could say, eccentric people that people focus on that I think many people would be friends with, like unironically be friends with, because he's strange, but it was endearing to see someone who would make these strange drinks, who would dress in a certain way, and would behave his true self. I respected King Cobra for that. I actually liked that when he did that. It was quite funny when he acted goofy and all that, but what gets to me is that knowing that he had a drinking issue, and people would say, well, it's because of his drinking. Well, the way he was always had people go after him, and it's not like, oh, on the internet. No, I mean like IRL, that kind of shit where people just want to be unnecessarily cruel. And it's not like someone that's just a bad person, just someone that unironically couldn't help certain features with himself or his certain quirks. You know, I think trolling's funny, but there were times where you had to be careful what you do. And there were people out there who would try to befriend Cobra that I felt that were taking advantage of him. Many of the people within certain groups would try to befriend him, and at the end there would be trolls. You know, not the good kind, not the ones that are just being goofy. I mean the ones that are leading him on in his emotions, thinking that they're his friends. Like I remember, King Cobra was a person that probably didn't have many friends, and when he did, I heard something about with one of his friends passing or something like that, and it got him into drinking. Um, and someone IRL should have check up on him more, and try to hang out with him more to get him out of that cycle of drinking. Now, drinking's fine; it's just you have to be careful with it. Um, Cobra was also said to be, you know, the kind of person who self ends. More likely to self end. I'm not gonna say the word on YouTube or TikTok. I'm gonna put this both on there. Um, but it's hard knowing that when you see men go through the struggle, and especially men like Cobra, where they're just eccentric and different, you have no other way to find help. He had a good supporter with his father, but because of certain people in his life either tried to use him or other stuff, you just realize that there are certain things that he didn't have enough support in certain ways. He tried to do everything himself, and which is actually endearing. If you're a man, which I guarantee most people who listen to me are men, because a woman just doesn't understand this kind of thinking. He was stubborn, but that's a man trying to determine his own life, and he wanted to do his life as he wanted. As I said, he's very endearing. He was strange, he was awkward, he was goofy. You could say quite gullible, but he had this aura that I think people would have liked to hang out with. That strange, nerdy dude who was kind of hard, but people on the surface just see him as repulsive in a bad way, but not understanding him truly. And it's funny because within the West, trying to be yourself is kind of strange when you think about it, because you see this transness and all this LGBT whatever, and then you realize it's not really trying to be yourself. It's just trying to conform to something that in the surface seems it's trying to be unique, but in reality it's just being conformist. And Cobra was really trying to be himself, trying to individualize himself to express himself. And he did goofy stuff. We laughed at his antics and all that, but we enjoyed sometimes what we watched with him when he tried to make videos. He made his wand, he made his unique items, and he tried to do what he loved. And like most men throughout today's age, he had not enough support. Now, he did have his dad, as I said, but he needed more. Not to say his dad didn't do enough. His dad did plenty enough, but he needed even more. Men are the majority of self-end victims. That's a fact. Now, maybe he didn't self-end, but he clearly drank too much to where I think he personally wanted to self-end. And like many self-end victims, they never helped. They never look at the issues of our society, how we treat men. And especially with Cobra, he had autism, and autistic men tend to be treated as subhuman. They're treated as not even human. And the rate we see this kind of treatment of people, it's just fucking disgusting. Like, especially with someone like him when he was autistic and, being a man, you don't get any support. I mean, majority of them end up being homeless. I'm not talking about the ones that are like Christian. I'm talking about like people who are basically normal functioning adults. Like, he paid his bills, his taxes, everything. He just had this issue that today he gets treated as a subhuman, but about 70, 80 years ago, he would just been considered just a side person, a person who was a side. But, people didn't understand that. And now, like many people of his age and of his time who is like the way he died of substance abuse or self-end. If you have people who are like this, be close to them. Take care of them. Tell them that they're important. You care for them. And if you don't, you're going to see more people like Cobes. You're going to see more people who are in this situation, who have to use substance, who have to use something to numb the pain. And it's not talking about, like autistic men. I'm talking about men in general also. Because this also happens in men. Men in general, normal men. And our society has deemed men to be not worth to be helped. So remember, treat men well, because we built society. We built everything you've seen. Rip to King Cobra JFS. May his eccentric personality live on beyond anything.